It's a new year and a new chance for you to make a fresh start with your compliance. For the next 31 days on the FCPA Compliance Report, we're going to be bringing you a daily tip, strategy, or idea that you can use to improve your program. Here's your host, Tom Fox, the Compliance Evangelist.
Clearly articulated written standards. The written standard requirements have long been memorialized in the U.S. Sentencing Guidelines, which contain 7 basic compliance elements that can be tailored to fit the needs and financial realities of any given organization. From these 7 compliance elements, the Department of Justice has crafted its minimum best practices compliance program, which is now attached to every DPA and NPA issued. These requirements were incorporated into the 2012 FCPA Guidance and brought forward in both the 2019 Guidance and the 2017 FCPA Corporate Enforcement Policy. The U.S. Sentencing Guidelines assumes that every effective compliance ethics program begins with a written standard of conduct, i.e. a code of conduct. What should be in this written standard of conduct? The starting point reads, Element 1, Standard of Conduct, Policies and Procedures. An organization should have an established set of compliance standards and procedures. These standards should not only be a paper-only document, but a living document that promotes organizational culture that encourages ethical conduct and a commitment to compliance with applicable regulations and laws. In 2012 guidance, the DOJ and SEC stated a company's code of conduct is often the foundation upon which an effective compliance program is built. As the DOJ has repeatedly noted in its charging documents, the most effective codes are clear, concise, and accessible to all employees and to those doing business on the company's behalf. Indeed, it would be difficult to effectively implement a compliance program if it was not available in the local language so that employees in foreign subsidiaries can access and understand that. When assessing a compliance program, the DOJ and SEC will review whether the company has taken steps to make certain that the code of conduct remains current and effective and whether a company has periodically reviewed and updated its code. The 2019 guidance added, any well-designed compliance program entails policies and procedures that give both content and effect to ethical norms and that address and aim to reduce risks identified by the company as a part of its risk assessment process. As a threshold matter, prosecutors should examine whether a company has a code of conduct that sets forth, among other things, the company's commitment to full compliance with relevant federal laws that is accessible and applicable to all employees. As a corollary, prosecutors should also assess whether the company has established policies and procedures that incorporate the culture of compliance into its day-to-day operations. Your code of conduct, policy, and procedures should be grouped under the general classifications of written standards comprising 3 levels of written standards. First, every company should have a code of conduct which should most generally express its ethical principles. But simply having a code of conduct is not enough. A second step mandates that every company should have policies in place that build upon the foundation of the code of conduct and articulate code-based policies, which should cover such issues as bribery, corruption, and accounting practices. From the base of a code of conduct and policies, every company should then ensure that the enabling procedures are implemented to confirm those policies that are implemented, followed, and enforced. Best practices also require companies to have additional written standards, including, for example, detailed due diligence protocols for screening third-party business partners for criminal backgrounds, financial stability, and improper associations with government agencies. Ultimately, the purpose of establishing written effective standards is to demonstrate that your compliance program is more than just words on a piece of paper. Policies and procedures. The written policies and procedures required for a best practices compliance program are well known and long established. As stated in the 2012 FCPA Guidance, among the risks that a company needs to address include the nature and extent of transactions with foreign governments, including payments to foreign officials, the use of third parties, gifts, travel, entertainment expenses, charitable and political donations, and facilitation and expediting payments. Policies help form the basis of expectation and conduct in your company, and procedures are the documents that operationalize these standards of conduct. The role of compliance policies is to provide guidance and protect employees despite an occasional hiccup. Policies provide a basic set of guidelines for employees to follow. They can include general do's and don'ts, work process flows, specific issue guidelines, By establishing what is and what is not acceptable compliance behavior, a company can mitigate the compliance risk imposed by employees who might make foolish decisions or otherwise engage in unethical conduct. While policies are not guaranteed that things will always not go sideways, they are a line of defense if they do. The effective implementation and enforcement of compliance policies demonstrate to the government that a company is operating ethically and proactively for the benefit of its stakeholders, employees, and communities it serves. If the company is subject to the FCPA, it is also an international company, so that can be quite a wide community. The 2012 FCPA Guidance ended its section on policies with the following. Regardless of the specific policies and procedures implemented, these standards should apply to personnel at all levels of the company. It is important that policies are fairly and consistently applied across your company, for if compliance policies are inconsistently applied, your compliance program will lose credibility. This point cannot be overemphasized. If you are going to terminate employees for fudging their expense accounts in Brazil, you must make sure the same conduct lands your top producer in the United States with an equal quality of justice. There are numerous reasons to put some serious work into your code of conduct policies and procedures. They are certainly a first line of defense when the government comes knocking. This means the regulators will take a strong view against a company that does not have a well thought out and articulated set of policies, procedures, and code of conduct, all of which are systematically reviewed and updated. Written policies signed by employees provide a vital layer of communication. Together with a signed acknowledgement, these documents can serve as evidentiary support if a future issue arises. In other words, the document, and then document mantra applies just as strongly to this area of anti-corruption compliance as any other. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Well, number 1, a code of conduct together with policies and procedures have long been recognized as cornerstones of a best practices compliance program. Number 2, each level of written standards builds upon one another, so consider this as an integrated step. And number 3, the fair process doctrine applies to your written standards. Quite simply, if you terminate people in Brazil for cheating, you have to terminate them in America if they cheat as well. So fair process depends upon transparency in your written documents going forward. I hope you will enjoy the entire month on written standards and that you will listen in again where we explore another topic in the month of May.
If I could ask you to do so, would you pass on to at least one person this podcast series on the nuts and bolts of compliance, as I'm trying to expand my audience base for 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance program. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow where I take up another topic in innovation in compliance. Thanks again for listening. 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance program is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.